I want to talk about one of the biggest flaws I believe that Yankees general manager Brian Cashman has, and that is his refusal to lose trades. It sounds really weird. Why would it be the flaw of a general manager to not want to lose trades? But what I really mean is that Cashman will not overpay in a trade, even if the trade would fix the core issues of the Yankees. He refuses to part way with the top prospects in the organization in order to get the pieces that the team really needs. And instead, he's looking at like third string options, not the players who would fix the problems, but players who are good and could fix them. He's not willing to overpay to get the actual talent the team needs. And yes, this can find diamonds in the rough. The Yankees refuse to overpay for relievers now, and it's allowed them to find players like Wandy Peralta and Clay Holmes and trade for them for basically nothing. But it's holding back on the big moves that have hurt the Yankees over the years. My first big example of this was the 2021 trade deadline and Trey Turner. Now, if you remember the 2021 Yankees, they had a big issue on the team. Shortstop was a massive, massive problem. Gleyber Torres was playing shortstop at that time, and he was having one of his worst hitting seasons of his career. He was a terrible defensive shortstop, throwing errors left, right, and center. It was just not good. The Yankees needed a shortstop. None of their prospects were ready to play. It was a massive, massive issue on the roster. It was a big hole. And Trey Turner, he would have fixed that issue instantly. He was one of the best shortstops in MLB at the time. He's had a slow season this year, but he still is one of the best shortstops. And he was available at the trade deadline. He did get traded from the Washington Nationals to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and it cost a lot of prospects. Now, albeit it's a kind of hard to determine the exact value of Turner in the trade, because the Nationals traded Max Scherzer and Trey Turner to the Dodgers for the Dodgers' number 1 ranked prospect, number 2, number 17, and an unranked prospect. So it's hard to determine how much of that was just Trey Turner's value, how much of that was just Max Scherzer's value. But it would have cost a lot of prospects. I mean, it probably would have cost Jason Dominguez, Oswald Peraza, and maybe a little more to get him. But it would have fixed so many issues on the team. Instantly, you get one of the best shortstops in the game, an impact bat, a fast player, someone who can hit for a high average and play decent defense. And guess what? He would have filled the time frame for the Yankees perfectly. If they had traded for him in 2021, he would have played instead of Torres at the end of the season. That would have been massive at shortstop. And then last year in 2022, instead of trading for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and Josh Donaldson and having IKF as the shortstop for the whole season, you would have had Trey Turner there locking it down. And then this year, he would be a free agent. You would say, bye Turner, or the Yankees could have signed him and extended him. But if they had let him walk, then they could have called up Anthony Volpe. The timing would have been perfect. Trey Turner would have been the perfect player to get at the 2021 trade deadline. He would have fixed a massive hole on the Yankees, and he was one of the best players available. The time would have worked out perfectly. Get him for a year and a half. It would have been perfect for the Yankees. Instead, they traded for Joey Gallo. And Gallo was terrible for the Yankees, but none of the prospects they had to give up really hurt the Yankees, so it's hard to call that trade a loss. And that's the main point there. Brian Cashman refused to give up the big prospects needed to get Trey Turner, like Jason Dominguez, Oswald Peraza, Austin Wells. Instead, he just held on to those prospects and traded some slightly worse prospects for Joey Gallo. But Gallo wasn't what the Yankees needed. And the Yankees didn't lose the Gallo trade. Those prospects didn't turn out into anything great. But Gallo wasn't what the Yankees needed, and it caused the Yankees to, in my opinion, be at a severe disadvantage for 2 straight postseasons. That is hurting the team's chances of success exponentially. If they had just gotten Trey Turner, so many issues would have been solved. And frankly, I don't care if the Yankees would have had to overpay prospect-wise. If they would have had to give up their 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th ranked prospect to get Trey Turner, it likely would have been worth it, even if a lot of them turned out to be solid players. But they didn't. And because the Yankees didn't trade for Trey Turner, they went out and traded for Josh Donaldson and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa before the 2022 season. That wasn't what the Yankees needed. The Yankees were set at third base. They had Gio Urshela. He was a decent defender. He could hit. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, he wasn't what the Yankees truly needed at shortstop. But they did that trade because it was a hard one to lose. All that they had to do was eat Donaldson's contract, give up Gary Sanchez, who's been DFA'd by like 3 teams since then, and give up Gio Urshela, who's been traded from the Twins already. So the Yankees didn't really lose that trade, but they are not winning there either. Like, even if Josh Donaldson hadn't fallen off of a cliff and had hit decently well last year, it wouldn't have been a big impact. It wasn't what the Yankees needed. 2022 trade deadline. Luis Castillo was available, one of the best pitchers in baseball that season. But instead, they got Frankie Montas. They got the slightly worse guy. And the Yankees gave up a decent bit to get Montas. They gave up a top 100 ranked prospect in Ken Waldichuk, and he's been terrible. He has an ERA over 6 this season. So they didn't really lose the trade, despite Montas being terrible for the Yankees. But they could have gotten Luis Castillo. He would have been amazing. And then they wouldn't have had to get Carlos Rodon, who, while I really like with the Yankees, he's getting paid more money than Castillo, and he's not pitching. So you could have gotten Castillo, had a great arm last postseason, had a great arm right now for less money than what you're paying Carlos Rodon. But instead, Brian Cashman decided, I don't want to give up our best prospects. I don't want to give up Oswald Peraza and Jason Dominguez to get Luis Castillo, despite the fact he would fix so many of the issues. I want to give up Ken Waldichuk and some other prospects who I'm more confident that they won't do as well. This is my main issue here. Cashman is so fixated on winning every trade, or at least not losing every trade. He's not going to pull the trigger and give up the top prospect, the top 2 prospects on the team to get the player that can push the Yankees over the edge. And he needs to do that. It's okay to give up really good prospects and overpay if the player that you're getting fixes the issues on the team. Prospects are just that. They are prospects. Jason Dominguez, who's the most hyped prospect in recent memory, he's been alright, but he hasn't been like Mickey Mantle 2.0. Anthony Volpe, he hasn't been Derek Jeter. Prospects are just prospects, and when you can trade them for a player who fixes all of the issues on a team and gives you a great chance to win a World Series, you have to pull the trigger, even if it seems like an overpay at the time. So, that's just my opinion on one of Brian Cashman's biggest flaws, his inability to overpay in trades to get what the Yankees truly need. And it causes him to just make weird trades like the Donaldson IKF trade that don't fully fix the issues. I hope that this trade deadline, he does not make the same mistakes. He'll trade top prospects if it solves the issue. I'm hoping he makes that decision and doesn't make these same mistakes. But tell me what you think. Is this one of his biggest flaws? Is it a strength of his because it allows him to find diamonds in the rough, like Wandy Peralta and Clay Holmes, as I mentioned earlier? Or do you think it's another issue that Cashman has that has caused the Yankees to do so poorly in the postseason over the last couple of years? Tell me what you think in the comments below.